probably the last at least 3 years, if not 4 years, I would complain to my wife and I would say things like, I just don't feel right. I don't know what's wrong with me, but something's not right. In January in 2025, I went to the ER for stomach pains. I'd been constipated. I've never had that happen in my life. I was constipated for over a week and I had upper stomach pain. I didn't have any traditional symptoms that I've heard people with pancreatic cancer carry. I didn't have back pain or shoulder pain. He goes, it looks like you have pancreatic cancer. And it just like the room started spinning. Like I was just like, this can't be happening. Like, I'm a sole provider. I just had my second child. Before I was diagnosed, life was really amazing. I was super active. I played hockey 3 times a week, had a business, married. I just had my second son, Callum, who is 3 months old, and a 4-year-old. So needless to say, it was very hectic in such a good way. When I was diagnosed, I was 41 and about a month out from my 42nd birthday. I've always been very active. I felt very mentally on top of my game, and she would kind of say like, sweetie, this is part of getting older. Like you're trying to be, active and younger and time's catching up to you. And I'm like, there's no way, like I'm not even 40 yet. I was constantly doing blood work and tests and hormones and testosterone replacement. I thought it was all these different things. And when I went to the ER, they had asked me, they said, well, do you drink? And I don't drink alcohol. And they're like, well, this is really unusual for someone to have acute pancreatitis, but basically drink this activated charcoal, go home, and go on a clear liquid diet for a couple of days. And if it doesn't go away, come back. So he sent me home, and it did go away. But for the next 9 months, the pain would come kind of periodically. I was riding dirt bikes, and Sunday, I was laying in bed with my 2 boys and my wife, and it was like 9 a.m. And I told my wife, I said, I got a really busy week and my stomach's starting to bother me again. I remember, laying in bed that day and looking at my 2 boys, and it just felt different. I was like, I'm so blessed. Life is amazing. But I felt like something was wrong. Like it was going to change. And so I went to the ER by myself and did the scans, and I was sitting in the ER, and I could see it was taking a while, and I could see doctors talking and discussing and looking over at me. One of them started to walk over to me, and he goes, hey, he goes, how, kind of upbeat, but he goes, how are you feeling? And I go, I'm feeling okay, but I have a feeling right now I'm about to not be, based on what you're going to tell me. And he's like, yeah. He goes, it looks like you have pancreatic cancer. I knew like the odds were, bad for pancreatic cancer. And so I stood up and I just told the doctor politely, I'm like, I can't hear anymore right now. I'm like, can you do me a favor and call my wife and just tell her to come down here? I remember I was just freaking out. I was like kind of arguing with them saying this can't be possible. Like there's no way. And no one in my family had a history of cancer. So it was just completely out of left field. They ended up doing the biopsy. So they basically did 2 procedures on me. They put me to, they're like, we're going to put you to sleep and we're going to do a pancreatic biopsy and incubate you. And we're going to put a stent in to kind of open your bile duct up. And then they did a liver biopsy. I woke up, the doctor was standing over me, at his arm on my shoulder. He goes, hey, it's confirmed, it's malignant, like you have pancreatic cancer. And I heard him and I was fine with it. I was like, this sense of peace came over me, like nothing I had experienced. And I just felt like I was just going to be okay. And I had my cell phone by me and I was downstairs in their operating room. And I called my wife and I said, hey, they're going to tell you I have cancer. I don't even know what stage it is. I'm guessing it's later. But whatever they tell you, don't Google statistics, don't freak out. I'm like, I promise you right now, no matter what they say, I'm going to beat this. We right away started researching hospitals and clinics. And so when they had released me from the hospital, very quickly, within like 2 days or something, I had scheduled for the chemo port to be put in within like 4 days. I didn't know if that was the right direction, but I just felt like it was popping up in my head and someone was guiding me spiritually. And I'm like, just do this and buy yourself time until you figure out the direction that you want to go into. And so I did that. And then what had happened was I went to the Mayo Clinic in Arizona. The doctor was literally sitting across from my wife and I, and he goes, "Wow, I don't know how you're so calm and composed." He's like, having stage 4 cancer. And that was the first time I heard a doctor say stage 4. And he goes, "I don't know that I would be able to keep it together as well as you." And I just was like, what are my options? They basically were like standard of care, which I was like, okay, I can get that at home. I don't need to drive all the way to Arizona for that. Not a single doctor told me 2 years, 5 years, 6 months, none of that. I just avoided that conversation. And I never asked because it didn't matter to me. Like I'm just convinced in my head, I'm going to beat this. I was on my second round of chemo, and it was a Saturday night at home. And all of a sudden I was shaking like violently. Um, to the point where I thought I was going to have a seizure. My body was like literally uncontrollably. And then I was vomiting. And I just assumed that these were side effects. And my wife was like, this is not normal. She's like, we need to go to the emergency room. We went to the emergency room, and, I'm vomiting outside of the emergency room. They wheelchair me in, and they're asking me, are you okay? Does it feel like your heart's racing? I said, no, why? And they're like, well, you're sitting here and your heart's going 187 beats per minute right now. I just remember being in excruciating pain on my right side. And then things were starting to feel like really bad, really fast. And it just felt like my body was letting go. And I remember praying to God. I said, God, please, if you want to take me, let my kids saw that I fought cancer. Because at this point it had been like 2 months, and I was like, this can't be happening this quick. And basically I found out that I was sepsis, and they did emergency surgery to remove my gallbladder. And then when I came out from that surgery, they basically told me, hey, you have a bile duct leak somewhere and we don't know where it's at. I ended up staying in the hospital for it's like 10 or 11 days. And I went from 180 pounds to 140 pounds. So when I got out of the hospital, I was just like, my hands, like you couldn't see any veins, just incredibly weak, incredibly skinny. Eyes were black, like sucked in. We talked to MD Anderson again. They're like, we don't really have anything to offer you right now because you've started chemo. And since you started chemo, we can't put you into a trial. But if things get worse or the chemo doesn't work, then call us back. And so I was dumbfounded by that because I'm like pleading with them. I'm like, look, I'm a father. Like I'm 41 years old. Like what do I do in this situation? And they're like, we're sorry, call us back if things get worse. I'm like, so if I'm on my deathbed and at my weakest point, then that's when you're basically essentially going to throw a Hail Mary out there. And the answer was yes to that. She literally said, you'll never be a candidate for surgery. And she goes, we just don't recommend that for stage 4. And I'm like, there's always exceptions to every rule. And I'm only asking you, if I'm the 0.001%, then would you, like best case scenario? And there was just no hope whatsoever offered for her. My wife, then at that point, I kept seeing, there's a doctor that I reached out to in the beginning about surgery who was phenomenal, Dr. Christopher Wolfgang. We met with him in the beginning. He's like, hey, you're young, you look good, you're strong, you're healthy, you can beat this. And he's like, your surgery of your location, the head of the pancreas, he's like, it's not wrapped around any arteries or veins. He's like, it would be pointless to do surgery on you now because you have liver mets. And we don't want to stop the chemo because the chemo is working. And so let's work on clearing those liver mets. And if we do kill those liver mets, then surgery could definitely be an option for you. I'd finished 9 rounds of chemo. My numbers had really plateaued. My CEA or C19 in the beginning that was at 60 had now remained at 1. So it was essentially what they would consider undetectable numbers. And then my CEA, which was at 1800, had come all the way down to 16 or 18, I believe. So dramatic reduction. And then all of my tumors, a pancreas tumor, which was like 3.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters, was down into like the 1 centimeter range. Some of my liver mets that were 4 were below a centimeter. So received like 90% shrinkage in some case scenarios. So I responded really well to the chemotherapy. And that's where I think Dr. O'Reilly felt confident to the next step of moving to radiation, to which I'll do six sessions of. They're very confident that through this radiation that they can kill the cancer in the liver. which in case it goes well, then that would make me surgical candidate for the Whipple procedure on the pancreas. I'm planning and living my life. Like, I'm still working. I enjoy that. It put things in perspective of how short life could be. And sometimes we wait for these perfect moments in life to do certain things of, I'm going to switch jobs or I'm going to move. And there really isn't a perfect timing. I mean, we're like literally right now in the middle of buying a horse ranch property, that I'm going to move my family to. It's always been kind of like a dream. I want to get back to playing hockey. I keep telling the doctors, like, when can I take this port out? I think the hardest thing is knowing that when you're going through cancer, yeah, the chemo is hard, and what your body goes through is hard, but it's so hard for those that are around you as well, and they have to, like, just like I look at it as like you're going to war, and they're going to war with you. My oldest son is 4, and one of the other kids, my son was in bed. He sleeps with us in the middle of my wife and I. His name's Pierce, and he looked over and he goes, he'll say things now like, I'm telling the truth. He wants to make sure that we know he's serious, right? He goes, I have something to tell you. He goes, I'm telling you the truth. Okay, you have to believe me. And we said, okay, Pierce. And he goes, I was on the swing stay with this girl, and she said that daddy's sick and that he's probably going to die. And it just broke me. Like, I just was gutted. I hope that they would see that we all are going to be faced with adversity through our life. Like, that is guaranteed. No matter what, no matter who we are, it doesn't, you can have all the money in the world, whatever it is, you're going to be faced with problems. And then you try to do your best, with dignity to basically overcome those problems. You push through and just understand, that, it's these things of like, life isn't fair. These things like it, life is beautiful, but you're going to be hit with challenges. And so just do your best to overcome and get through those challenges. You have to know going into this, unless you're very lucky, you're probably not going to hear what you want to hear at your first meeting with the doctor. These doctors deal in statistics and data. Some are faith-based and some aren't, but you're going to have to push for yourself, basically, and have that will to want to survive and just not accept it. And I mean this like as bluntly, like, I don't care what stage, where you're at. If you want to live, like, give it everything you got, like, throw it all out there, talk to every doctor, and then figure out what you want to do that you're comfortable doing, and then go with that plan. This is your life on the line.